Welcome to the Riding in the Weeds podcast, where we tackle life's inevitable challenges, from navigating mountain bike trails to overcoming business hurdles and forging deeper connections with pets and people. It's easy to find yourself tangled in the weeds, but we're here to help with insights and strategies that'll get you out of the weeds. Our goal is to boost your performance in both sports and everyday life by sharing essential skills that we've learnt along the way. Through tales of our entrepreneurship journey, thrilling biking adventures, and fostering meaningful relationships, your hosts, Natasha and Ginny Brandon, will guide you on a journey that's not only enjoyable, but also inspiring. Join us to gain confidence that you need to navigate the trails of life. Welcome back to episode 76 of Riding in the Weeds. Thank you so much for joining us. You are here with Natasha, that's me, and Ginny Brandon. I am a life and mountain bike performance coach. My whole process is about helping you step into what you're wanting to achieve in your life and what's standing in your way. I love to do things slightly out of the normal, and I love to bring people along. Ginny, what's your story?
Yeah, I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. And I intuitively connect with pets to help support the relationship between pets and owners and get everybody to a deeper level of understanding for more harmonious relationship together.
We created this podcast because the idea is that we all get stuck in the weeds. And what I mean by that is when you are moving, when you are wanting to achieve more in your life, if you're not just accepting the norm, you will find yourself having to move through muck, because that's what healing is about. And we're really in this for evolution and growth over a lifetime. So the tools and the processes we talk about in this podcast are here to help you move through that stuff and to acknowledge that we all get stuck in the weeds. That is normal. You want to know about normal? Listen to our last podcast episode. But really, whatever you are going through is completely normal. And it's not about ignoring that or trying to avoid that. It's about what can we do? What are the tools and the processes and the ways that we can move out of the muck and into the joy and the fun and the ease and the peace and all of that stuff that we want in our lives. We have moved on to a new platform. We're using Substack, and if you love our podcast, please go over and subscribe on Substack. It is free currently to be part of our community. Well, it's always free. We will be introducing a paid version coming up. And this month, end of this month, we are going to be launching a program, which is going to be a short, supported program for you to step into the theme of whatever it is you're wanting to really see shift in 2025. Today's conversation is really diving a little bit into one of the big tools that we are going to work through in this course, and that's meditation. So as I said, our last episode, we talked about normal. And in this episode, we want to talk about meditation and the things that kind of get us stuck in giving up on meditation. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't meditate or they try and they stop is because we feel like we're failing. And Ginny, just before we jumped on, she had a little story that I'm going to get her to jump on with about what the Dalai Lama says about meditation.
Yeah, as I have said numerous times, I am still working through Mindfulness Redesigned by Amit Sood. And he had the luck of being able to interview with the Dalai Lama. There was an event, and he was one of a few people that was allowed on stage to ask the Dalai Lama questions. And basically the question he asked was, I struggle with meditation. Do you have any advice you can give me? And the Dalai Lama's like, it's hard. I just had such a response to that, because if someone like the Dalai Lama, who is just about the greatest guru that I'm aware of when it comes to meditation, if he says it's hard, and he meditates for hours and hours a day, then it's bloody hard. Yeah. And for the rest of us, simple humans who are caught up in lives that obviously look very different from the Dalai Lama's, How do we take a tool that everyone says is so important and so useful, knowing that it's bloody hard, and use it to our advantage?
Yeah. Well, and I think that gives us an opportunity for so much. I listened to Abraham Esther Hicks, and one day they were answering a question from the audience, and the question was, what do I do when I get it wrong? And the answer, there's been several different answers, but the gist of it is you are going to get hit by the bus more often than you stop yourself from stepping off the curb. So when you're in a situation with your partner and you're frustrated and your brain says, don't say that thing, and then you say that thing anyway, right? Like we will get all of this stuff wrong more often than we will right. And back to our last episode, I use wrong and right very, very loosely. The thing is, we're going to stumble, we're going to fail. It's an experiment. But if we don't sit down with the intention to experiment, then we're never going to have the experience of either having that moment where you're like, oh my God, I felt it. And then you will have the times when you don't feel anything. And at the end of the meditation, the person says, and how did that make you feel? And you're like, well, I know what I'm going to have for dinner.
And I have to say, it is so hard in those moments not to feel wrong or broken or like I can't do it or I failed. But that's it. Like sitting down to meditate is sitting down to meditate. Beyond that, what happens is not right or wrong. It's the intention of the doing that is so pivotal in that situation. And the thing about it is that it's a little bit like that whole thing about one glass of water is better than no glasses of water. A walk is better than no walk. Sitting down to meditate for even 5 minutes, 1 minute, whatever it is better than not sitting down to meditate at all. And when you can look at it that way and start to not judge yourself for the experience that you have, when you have the intention to simply observe what's happening, that's the first key. If you're not willing to observe, then you will make yourself wrong for figuring out what's for dinner and for solving all the world's problems and figuring out what to say to your coworker the next time they say the thing to you that really made you mad. You'll be upset that all those things happened in your 10 minutes on your mat rather than going, my mind is running around like crazy today. I wonder if I can calm that. Could I ask my mind to be calm? Or if that's just the energy of today. Maybe it's not even my energy that my body's responding to, and I'm just feeling something that's out in the universe, and that's what my brain is responding to. There's a lot of science that shows that we feel emotion, and then our brain will attach the meaning to that emotion. So we have the feeling first, and that feeling may not even be related to anything, but our brains have to make a meaning out of it. So they're going to make that meaning, I feel frustrated, and they're going to connect it to the last time that your body felt frustrated about something. But what if we can just observe? I'm feeling frustrated. Interesting. I think what helped me the most was learning that meditation doesn't have to only be sitting down on a mat in a quiet room in silence. And that changed my perspective a lot about what's possible through meditation and or achieving meditation.
Yeah, I mean, we are meaning making machines. And I know that a habit that I have is I will hear something that is a rule and I will make it mean whatever. Joe Dispenza said something, and what I heard was, if you are not completely present during meditation, then it was a waste of time. Now, I'm sure there was a whole context, and I'm sure that's actually not what he said, but that's what I heard. And so therefore, then meditation became even harder, because then I was like, well, that was a waste of my 5 minutes. Well, that was a waste of time. And I had to come back and actually rewrite that. And if you go on to Insight Timer or Calm, there are 5 billion different meditations on there, and some people do affirmations. Well, and then some people say, well, affirmations are dumb. Don't bother with affirmations. And there's just so many opinions out there. If you lock onto those opinions, you will never feel like you're doing anything because you're constantly being swayed by what somebody has said. And if that's how you are going through life, you're not ever going to find peace. You're not ever going to get where you're going. You go into a meditation group, and at the end of whatever you're doing, the leader says, and how does that feel? And there's always that person who's so spiritual and they had that enlightened experience. And you're like, oh, I don't belong in this group because I didn't have that experience. And the truth is that the rest of the people that didn't say anything, they all had the same experience as you. And who knows if that person actually had that experience or if they just want to appear like they're super enlightened. Who knows? I remember one day sitting down, I was, I don't know, maybe 16. I must have been a little bit older. And I meditated. And I had an out-of-body experience. It was unbelievable. To be completely honest, it might have been because I needed to get to sleep and I had been smoking some weed and I didn't have any. And so instead I sat down and meditated. And I remember coming out of it and being like, if I could create that experience, I would never need an external substance to ever feel anything again. Why would you ever drink or smoke or do any sort of psychedelics if you can generate that out of body experience purely by just lying there and being in the moment and with your breath? And I've been trying to come back to that for a very long time.
Yeah. What's funny about that, though, is that it is possible. It's very possible. There's a lot of people that do that on a consistent basis for themselves. However, it's not easy. It's extremely simple, but it's not easy. And I think that's the challenge is it's deceptive. All you're doing is sitting down. How hard can that be?
How hard can it be to sit still for 5 minutes and not think anything? Or, as I said in our last podcast, how hard can it be to listen to someone saying an affirmation and repeating it in your head for 5 minutes? Like a different affirmation. Like it's, and not go into 500 different places. I mean, that's simple. Like, how hard can it be?
But it is. It is hard. It is very hard. And that's one of the things about it is that I think because it's not concrete, it's all up here, it's all in the head, it's all in the ether, you don't have the tangible feedback. You go take something as simple as walking. You start walking. 20 minutes feels hard. A week or two later, 20 minutes doesn't feel so hard. Cool. Meditation, 20 minutes. Shoot, that'd be really long in the first place. Even 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes. A week later, 5 minutes still feels the same as it did a week ago. And there's no tangible awareness of a shift in how we are when you sit down to meditate. Even after you've been sitting down to meditate for an extremely long time. I'm over 1,000 days in my meditation total from the amount of time I've been using the app. And in the last 950, I've probably missed only 8 days because I got mad enough at myself I remembered. And yet I don't know that I have any tangible anything I could tell you specifically. Yes, these last 950 days have given me blank.
Yeah.
But I also know that when I don't like how I feel at the end of the day. I don't like the awareness that I have. I kind of view it like defragging the computer or shutting the computer down. In sleep, we do a lot of regenerative things for our brains. That's part of why sleep is so vital for our bodies. It's a repair time. But meditation has its own benefit for being able to allow your brain to function in a different way. There's lots of science on that out there. And So I view it that way. So even if I don't notice that the computer seems to be running a little better when I'm done, it's there. And I think what's important is to remember that meditation doesn't have to only look like sitting down on a mat in silence. It can be guided meditations, it can be affirmations, it can even be moving or walking. So meditation can look like so many different things. And I think when I started to discover that, that enabled me to start to find those moments in my day where I could incorporate a meditative state. Probably the easiest place I found that in the beginning was yoga. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, almost all of the martial arts have a very strong meditative foundation to them. And part of it, I believe, is the combination of the meditative mental state with movement. Mm-hmm. Because we are meant to move. Like our bodies are meant to move around. That's just how we're designed. And so when you add in that mental component, you can achieve a meditative state even though you're still moving. And so when you start to think about it from that perspective, then you can start to explore like, oh, well, my barn chores that I do every single day in a fairly consistent pattern can be meditative. The walk with the dog can be meditative. My mother, for my entire life, has done handcrafts. She's a fiber artist. So she knits, she cross stitches, she does embroidery, all sorts of things like that. And for her, having something in her hands like that can be extremely meditative. And so working on a craft, even doing art, painting, drawing, I've had meditative states when I've been working on art pieces before.
That's
so
finding that flow
where
state.
can we find that? Yeah. It exists in a lot of places, but we have to have the intention during the action so that it gets incorporated. Otherwise, we're just blowing through the motions, not present, not attached. That's like driving when you arrive somewhere and don't remember half of your trip. Yeah. That's checking out. That's a different issue, and I would dare say it's a problem. I don't think it's good to end up checking out of an action, particularly driving. Definitely one of the most risky ones, but it's not doom scrolling. It's not sitting on the couch still doom scrolling. I've even seen people who enjoy cooking. They could turn cooking into a meditative art. I think it's beautiful watching someone who has that quality to their actions, because you can see it. You can see how present they are, and you can see how clear they are with what's happening around them. But it doesn't have to just look like sitting on your butt on a mat for 10 minutes in silence.
No. And I think sometimes doing things with people as well. My husband and I have been doing a 15-minute yoga every evening. And it's really nice. We've got our video plays, we do our yoga. But one of the things that, and I don't know if this is anti-meditation or what, but one of the things that's making it really enjoyable is the moments where we will fall apart in laughter because one of us is like, really? You want me to do what now? And there's that moment that when I'm in a yoga class and I'm trying to get into something, there's that desire to kind of say to the person next to you, like, really? How am I supposed to get there? I've been doing this course and there's these prompts and I'm trying to journal the prompts and I'm all by myself over here going, I don't know the answer. And the thing I'm missing in this course, and something that we will incorporate into the course that we're doing, is that ability to actually sound off. I was talking to my counselor yesterday and I told her these are the prompts and this is how I'm struggling with it. And she just asked me the question back and I was able to answer her. When I'm asked what my journey is and the vision I have for my future, it feels so materialistic. It feels like I'm just saying these things because in the external world, that's what it's going to give me. I think it's the same thing with your meditation. I'm just doing the meditation because somebody has told me that if I can feel X, Y, Z, then I have achieved that goal. And she said, well, what would it feel like. And it was one of the first times in our conversations that I was like, oh, well, what I really want is to be able to know that I could just go home whenever I want. And until that moment, I hadn't really acknowledged how much New Zealand is home. And I love being in Canada, and I love being in Mexico, and I love being wherever I am. But there is a big part of me that misses home, and I hate the fact that I can't just go home. And so then by acknowledging that, by having somebody give me the opportunity to actually acknowledge that, it enabled me to go deeper, and I was able to find that feeling. And my meditation this morning, when I was asked to go into the vision of my future, was so much more powerful because I've started to actually dig deeper. This has taken a long time. We were doing that somatic journaling course, and one of the things that she said at the very beginning was the reason why this is so powerful is because most people find it really hard to sit still for 5 minutes. So instead of trying to sit still for 5 minutes, sitting down with a journal prompt and writing for 5 to 7 minutes will start to get your mind into a frame where you can be in that silence. And then at the end of the 7 minute prompt, we had a question and answer. So it gave that opportunity to get that feedback and go deeper and hear other people talking, which made you go, oh, I'm normal. This person had this experience, so that you can start to sound off and untangle the pieces that are actually standing in your way. Because it's not the meditation is hard, it's that there's so many layers that we have surrounding that core that's us. And it's about peeling them away. And what we need to find out is how can you peel it away in a way that feels joyful, in a way that feels fun. Because if it is not fun to sit still for 5 minutes for you, don't do that one. If getting in the bathtub and listening to a sound bowl audio track is fun and enjoyable for you, do that. If doing 10 minutes of yoga is fun and enjoyable for you, do that. If it's not, don't do it. Because you're never going to achieve the meditative state if what you're doing sucks.
Yeah.
So keep looking. There are 5 billion different ways to do this. Bob Proctor has a morning routine. I think it's 15 minutes or so. He picks up a book and reads, puts his timer on, reads like just whatever page he opens up to, he reads it for 5 minutes. He then writes down 10 things that he's grateful for. And then he sits still for 5 minutes. I did that for years, actually. I love that routine. It was a great little morning practice. It resonated with me because by the time I got to sitting still for 5 minutes, I'd done these other things which got my brain into the space. And to be honest, half the time I'd actually fall asleep for 5 minutes. So I wasn't meditating at all, but I loved it. And I felt so good. Yeah. And then I felt like that wasn't really serving me anymore. So I switched it up to something else.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest keys is finding the finding the thing that allows you to get closer and closer to that space of being able to observe what's happening internally without judgment of it, and to be able to continue expanding that awareness into your day. Because that's part of the point. If it ends at the mat, when you get up off the mat or when you stop doing whatever you're doing, then how is that useful to you in the bigger picture? It's just a small chunk of your day that's a thing that you're doing. And so if it doesn't start filtering into the rest of your energy and the rest of your day, then it's probably not really worth it. If you're resenting it, it's not going to be helpful. It's not going to have the benefits. So whatever you can use to continue to expand that space and that awareness. I'm not going to lie, Shavasana is great. I love Shavasana at the end of yoga class, especially one of those yoga classes where frequently, like my thing in the middle of yoga class when it would get hard was to be like, you're funny. You're really funny. And when I would hit Shavasana at the end of one of those classes, I loved it. And that sort of liminal space that you get in after you've worked your body really hard, that had shifts. That made changes.
Yeah.
And I could feel the difference for the rest of my day. I also usually walked out feeling better than when I walked in, which is part of what sold me on yoga in the first place. But figuring out, how do we find that for ourselves? Get creative, because there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody's brain is different. Everybody's chemistry is different.
Yeah.
And part of it is when you spend your days functioning in a certain way, and so your brain is producing certain chemicals all day long, it gets used to that. And when you sit down on the mat and go, hey, we're going to produce different chemicals, the brain goes, you're funny, right? Because it's not used to doing that. And so then it goes, well, we don't do it this way. This is wrong. So you're going to have to sit there long enough to get through so that your brain starts doing things differently. And whatever the shortest route there is the most useful one.
Yeah.
Because it'll take the least amount of effort and the least amount of struggle. So the somatic writing workshop was great. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I want to incorporate more of that into my practices because it is a nice way to sort of shortcut and get the brain to stop chattering so much that you can actually feel what's really going on underneath.
Yeah.
And I think that is the value of meditation, regardless of how you get there.
That's funny. I used to be in my yoga class and I would be judging myself for where I couldn't be, or I would be pushing myself. And I found yoga with Cassandra, and I love her. She's so gentle. She never really pushes me. And she constantly says, if you stop breathing, then you're pushing too hard. She's like, there's no judgment. Just do what you can do. And she'll ask us to do something. And it's like there's a combination of, oh, wow, that's possible. Not for me right now. And I just start giggling because I'm like, you want me to get my head to where now? Yeah, that's not happening. And then we'll start laughing because he's like, well, look at where I am. And it becomes like, wow, that's actually possible. And that's not possible for me in this moment. And that's okay. It's the same thing with whatever your meditation is, holding it lightly, right? Like, oh, it's possible that I could answer this question enlightenedly. Well, right now I'm not getting an enlightened answer. I'm just going to write something down and I'm going to come back to it and I'm going to hold it really lightly that, okay, that's the possibility, is that I could potentially know, answer, and really embody what does abundance mean to me. Well, I'm not really sure, actually. Okay, well, I'm gonna write something down and I'm gonna come back to that question because there is the possibility that if I keep asking, I will get an answer. And I think one of the things coming back to the whole meditation is that there is so much science that just by doing this, meditation will change your makeup of your brain. It'll give you a software update. It will give you a hardware update. It will start to heal and adjust and move things in your body that you are not aware of. Just like doing push-ups every day. They don't get easier, but you get better at them. And to your point earlier, Ginny, you don't feel like you're getting better. That's because you just keep on spiraling out and doing it at that different level. So really thinking about that intention. One of the other things I heard recently was Kathy Heller, and she was talking about a retreat that she went on, and half of the group went and did mushrooms. And it is scientifically proven that when you do mushrooms, you boost your serotonin. And the other half of the group did candidly meditation. And when they came back and they measured the serotonin levels, what they found was, yes, absolutely, the people that did mushrooms had a great time. They increased their serotonin. But the people that did the Kundalini meditation, they also increased their serotonin, and it was 4 times higher, and it lasted for longer. But it was probably harder, because taking some mushrooms and going on a trip, that's way easier. Smoking some weed and chilling out and bringing yourself into a different space, it is going to achieve the goal, and there's nothing wrong with it. But as we were talking about before we jumped on, it is a tool. So being intentional, what is the tool? And sometimes that's the tool you need. When you're training your dog, Sometimes the only tool that's going to get you to teach that dog how to lie down when asked is going to be to pull that treat down, and he'll come down for the treat. Eventually, though, you need to move away from the treat and start to use hand signals and start to do it in a different way. You come to a bike lesson with me and I give you prompts, and there are so many people that have said to me that they ride along with my voice in their head, right? So they have taken the tool of coming to a lesson with me and working with me over several sessions and several times, and then they take the information I've given them and they've incorporated that. But when it isn't happening naturally, they've got my voice in their head. And that's why if you find a great meditation that you really enjoy the person's voice and you enjoy what they say and you enjoy listening to that guided meditation, it's a great tool. Use the tool. Be aware of the fact that you've found a tool. And then also make sure that you are working towards not being reliant on that tool.
Yeah. I view this very similar to the way that we view a lot of tack with the horses. There's all kinds of different pieces of tack out there that will help you achieve different results with your horse. The question is that piece of tack going to be something that you must have in order to get the result that you want with your horse? If it is, then there's a strong chance that maybe that's not really creating the actual outcome that you want, but it's only creating an expectation of a certain result that's dependent on the tool.
Yep.
And it's fine to use tools and to need them for certain periods of time. But if it becomes so rigid that the only way to achieve that is through using that specific tool, then it might be a good time to check and see if it would serve you better to explore a little bit and see what else might be possible out there. I don't have a problem using tools. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways to achieve the meditative state. Who's to say that achieving a meditative state while I'm mucking the barnyard isn't a tool?
Yeah.
It is. But at the same time, some of that boils down to intention. And if the only way I can get there is by mucking the barnyard, I would hope not, but if that's the only way you can get there, then maybe it's time to explore what other choices there are and what I might be avoiding by only exclusively using a singular tool that's going to be a means to an end.
There's so much truth to what you're saying. I'm giggling because like there's so many different ways. But by the time you hear this episode, I will be at the yoga bike surf retreat. Now, I haven't ridden my bike for quite a while. It's been a month or so. I ride a bike that is a very expensive bicycle. It has a motor, it has fancy seats, it has fancy pedals, it has fancy all the things. And I'm going to borrow my friend's bike because I want to avoid renting a bike. And you know what I've been thinking lately is, oh my God, her seat doesn't go up and down automatically. Like, I got past the fact it doesn't have a motor. Like, that's terrifying me in itself. Like, am I going to actually make it up the hill? I'm not sure. But it's not an expensive bike. It's a perfectly fine bicycle. I have ridden this trail with her riding her bicycle, and she's done a great job. I know that it will work to do the thing. But I am very reliant. I like my motor. I like my expensive bicycle. I very much like my seat that goes up and down. I used to ride without one. But I am very dependent on these things. Am I going to be able to do my job as a bike coach without my fanciness? Because it makes me look better when I have my fancy tools. And I am 100% cognizant of all of those things, and I'm actually okay with it. But exactly to your point, right? The tools make things easier, but are you dependent on them? And when you get to the point where you're actually not willing to do something because you don't have those crutches, then you need to start stepping back and looking at, okay, I need to adjust. I need to do this differently. It is really nice when you're doing yoga to have props, but you don't need them. It's really nice when you're doing meditation to have nice music, but you don't need it. It's great to have a journal that you write on every day, but right now I'm just finding blank sheets of paper wherever they happen to be in random books because I don't have a dedicated journal. At the beginning of our somatic writing workshop, I was sitting in a hotel room with a hotel pad. That was all I had to write on. I was very fortunate I had a pen. But I contemplated not showing up to day one because I hadn't gotten a journal and I didn't have the right tools to do it. I was still able to write for 7 minutes on a random little tiny pad. It still worked. It still did it. So,
Yeah.
out of all of this is pay attention to when you clasp onto things people say that you're not really meditating if you're not clear-minded for the entire time. You can't journal unless you have a fancy journal from the bookshop that says something very inspirational on its front page and has pretty colors. You're not doing it right, so don't do it at all. That's not true.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think that applies more than anything to meditation, but also to so many other things. We get hung up on the tools and we really don't need them to do whatever it is. I've always been so impressed by my trainer, watching her with students taking horses of all different types with all different types of tech. And she makes it work. No matter what the person has, she makes it work. Very rarely will she actually suggest a change unless something is truly detrimental, like it doesn't fit correctly for the horse or the rider. That's when she'll recommend a change because it's actually now interfering with the ability to make progress. But other than that, she lets people do the work that they can do because people don't always have the capacity to make those kind of changes. And that applies to so many things.
It's so many things.
So use the tools you have, work with them, but also be cognizant of whether or not they become a crutch. Be intentional and be mindful about what you're planning to do, what you want to do, what is your goal, and then rock it out.
You know what's really funny? I have to add this in at the end here. That was a beautiful summary. I think we'll finish on that note. But I just realized that I have been thinking more about the lack of motor and the seat than the fact that the brakes are going to be round the wrong way on this bike.
I mean, I guess if you are good, brakes are not as important necessarily, per se.
It's probably...
I mean, if you can't go anywhere, you don't need brakes, so...
The brakes being on the wrong side is probably going to be the biggest hurdle that I have to overcome, to be completely honest. As long as I'm cognizant of it, it will be fine. But really, the other things are not important. That is probably what I should have been paranoid about for...
Well, so now after your retreat, we're going to have to do a follow-up on this.
Did I die?
And hear how your experience was having different tools in
Yes.
a situation and how you adapt. There we go. There's our next topic for the future following your retreat.
There we go. Exactly. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I really do hope it was helpful. If you know someone that is struggling with meditation, if you think that this episode would be helpful for other people in your lives, please share it with them, because not only does it make them feel loved because you're thinking of them, but you're also giving people tools that might help them have more joy and more ease and more love and more peace in their lives. We are on Substack. Please check us out, writingintheweeds.substack.com, and come and subscribe, because this little course we're going to be doing is going to be transformational. It's going to be taking all of the things that Ginny and I have learnt from all of the masters that we have learnt and been taught by along the way. And that is the beautiful thing about working with people that are going out and being taught by other people, because you don't need to go out and do all these courses. You can actually get the information streamlined to you. We're going to share some of the key resources that we have found to be exceptionally helpful along the way, and what's really moving us forward, because we know what it's like to get stuck in the weeds. You don't need help, but when you get help, it enables you to hack the system. It enables you to shorten the distance from A to B. You don't have to go sideways. You don't have to take time. And the shorter path that we can make it, well, the more fun that we can have along the way. So I am Natasha Lockie, and you can find me at Betty Go Hard. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me at Natasha Lockie on Facebook. You can find me on our podcast, Writing in the Weeds. Please reach out to me on Substack. I am there. I would love to support you in whatever way you need support at this moment in time. Ginny, how do we find you?
Yeah, I'm Ginny Brandon. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. You can find me on the web at soulpetconnections.com and on Substack, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under the same handle. We really appreciate you coming along for the ride today with us, and we hope that this has given you a few more tools in your toolbox to find a better state of mind a little bit more often. So we look forward to seeing you next time when we are back on the air.
Have a great day.